Hello everybody and welcome back to Pravus Gaming and more Tekkit. In the last video we created an Orb Processing Facility and I think that it has worked out quite well. Now admittedly it is not the most efficient setup ever. One, it's a bit of a mess and if I had given myself some more space I could have cleaned it up a little bit. But two, the industrial craft pipes are just, I don't know, they're kind of a little unwieldy, they're kind of stupid. There's a lot of room for improvement, but at least for now it's what we've got. The problem we're having with this facility, as I mentioned at the end of the last video, though, is power. I am throwing away many stacks of coal trying to keep this monster running. It's doing a good job for us. We got a pretty good amount of ores and materials and stuff that are coming through, but it could be better. And at least knocking power off so that we don't have any more power concerns, that would be a huge load off of my chest. So that is what we are going to address today. Although first I will point out that I did upgrade my power flower using dark matter collectors, which is just a regular one with some dark matter on top and a bit of glowstone. But now we're generating diamonds a heck of a lot faster. I'd say we get one every, what, 20 seconds-ish? Something like that? That's not half bad. So every minute I'm playing this, hey look, that's 3 more diamonds. Anyway, power. So I did say that in the last video we were going to be doing geothermal. The other obvious conclusion would be to, 1, create a nuclear reactor, which is a little bit more ambitious than I'm willing to deal with right now, or try using these solar panels. So if I was willing to make several stacks of solar panels, I can make a handful of high-voltage solar arrays, which would generate a pretty reasonable amount of power as long as the sun is out and the weather is pretty good. Alternatively, the geothermal is consistent, it's infinite, and if you build it right, can generate a crap ton of power. But before we do that, we have a few things that we need to set up. So I've already built up 32 geothermal generators, and if you don't remember how those are built, it's just a regular generator plus some refined iron, some glass, and so on. But we are going to be making use of, I think it's the Red Power modpack's method of transporting items back and forth, similar to the industrial craft pipes, but in my personal opinion, a heck of a lot smarter and faster. Now, in order to make that kind of stuff work, we're going to need some filters. Filters and stuff like this, there's actually quite a few different things similar to filters, transposers and so on, are made using pistons, gold ingots, and red doped wafers. Now what does that mean? That is a silicon wafer smelted in an alloy furnace with some redstone. We haven't built an alloy furnace yet, so that's something we'll have to do. What is a silicon wafer? It's just some silicon boulier, whatever, cube thingies that are sliced up using a diamond handsaw. So there's a bit of a process involved in this. What does it take to make an alloy, whoa, if I could spell that'd be good, alloy furnace? Alloy furnace is made just using bricks, like a regular furnace, but just this stuff. So we need to find ourselves some clay. I don't think that's going to be too hard for me to find, just have to go digging around in the river, but we'll get that. We'll get some bricks going, and we'll make an alloy furnace. We'll start smelting up some silicon wafers and some red doped wafers. If you don't know how to make a handsaw, handsaws, like this, are made using sticks, a bit of iron, and then tipping it with some sort of other material. Could be rubies, emeralds, sapphires, or diamonds if you want to have the best longevity. I've already built a ruby one. I'm not sure if this will work. I don't think it does. But if you've never seen a ruby handsaw, this is actually kind of a fun tool, even if you just want to build some cool construction projects. For example, let's suppose that I grabbed a couple of these pieces of wood. I place the ruby handsaw like so, and the wood here, and look at this. It chops it up into several wooden slabs, which I could place right here, for example. You kind of get a weird little half-block effect. I could chop this up even further into panels, which could be used to cover the wood. So let's suppose I had a cable under here. Actually, I can show you real quick. Let's suppose that I had some cabling right down over here, or piping even, and I wanted to cover this up as if it were a regular block. Doop, and doop. Something like this. You could place this all up and down and try to hide your piping. That's kind of cool. You also could just put it sideways and chop them up into panel strips or other things like that, and these things fit nicely like so. So there's a few different options as far as your construction projects using handsaws, so they're kind of a helpful thing to have anyway, but obviously we're looking to make filters and red doped wafers, so that's what I'm going to spend my time on. While my bricks are smelting up, one other thing that we need to show you is how to use a pneumatic tube, or at least how to create them to start. So the pneumatic tube here is made using brass with glass. Seems pretty reasonable, and you get 8 of them for it. Brass is made by smelting together some tin and some copper in an alloy furnace. So once again, we really do need to have the alloy furnaces. Okay, we'll just place some bricks like so, and then something like this. I'll just even build 2 because, you never know. We want to speed this process up. And there we go. 2 alloy furnaces. I guess for the time being, I'll just place them over here or something. Okay, now we need some silicon wafers, which was something like this. Just need to smelt some coal and some sand together in order to create these silicon bouillie things. And we'll have to chop it on up. So, coal and sand it is. We'll just place in a whole load of coal with some sand. That should be cooking up. And while we're at it, let's also start cooking some brass. Looks like I could just leave those 2 stacks in here together. Can I do this? Oh, this seems to work. Okay, yeah, let's make some brass. We need a load of it. Okay, let's test this out. No, it does not appear that a ruby handsaw will be sufficient. Well, that is a little disappointing, but I guess it is acceptable. Diamond handsaw. Now we should be able to cut this stuff up. Hey, look! A whole load of silicon wafers. Perfect. Now I just need to grab a bit of redstone and cook that in the alloy furnace now that we are done making this stuff. See how well this works for me. Perfect. Okay, we'll just do this. Now, as if all this wasn't enough, the other things we're going to need are some methods of controlling our filters with electric signals. And for that, I think one of the best things to do is to build a timer. Here we go. Timers, man, look at this. This is made by using stone wafers with stone wires and stone pointers and stone cathodes and stone anodes. What the heck does all of this mean, you might ask? Well, could smelt some stone up. That gets me the stone wafers. Then I could throw some redstone in order to make some wires. Then the pointers require a redstone torch and even more stone. The anodes are just wafers with a lot of redstone. And the cathodes are just a torch and some stone wafers. So now we need to smelt up a whole load of stone in order to build a couple of these. And we'll probably want at least like 3 or 4 of them. I got a bunch of different projects that I'll need these for, so I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and just dump this in here and start making a whole load of stone slabs. Okay, let's go ahead and create ourselves some filters and stuff while that's cooking. So for this, we're going to need the pistons, which is made by using cobble, iron, and a crap ton of wood. So I've got some materials for me here. Let's grab some of this. Fortunately, cobble and stuff, pretty easy to come by with equivalent exchange, but even so, let's go ahead and build a whole load of pistons. Then we need the pistons, gold, red doped wafers, and then... Crap, was it just stone and everything else? Yes, it was indeed. Okay. Do this, and this. 32 filters. That might seem like overkill, because I definitely don't need this much right now. But eventually I'm going to want it, right? So that's probably okay. The other thing we're going to do is go ahead and build our pneumatic tubes out. So here's our brass, some glass, and now we've got a load of pneumatic tubing. Excellent. Okay, I am going to show you guys, in conjunction with a couple of condensers and a macerator, a method of generating unlimited EMC using the blaze rod trick that we were trying out earlier. Still works, but we can automate the process to be even faster. Alright, so let's see if I remember how this works. So the way that this is going to happen is we have to place down a macerator, and we want to have a way of feeding in blaze rods into the macerator and then pulling them out and creating more blaze rods so you have an endless loop. But then once that condenser gets to capacity and I have too many blaze rods, start feeding the extra dust into a separate condenser that can start making diamonds or something similar. So let's see. If we do this, I want to place some pneumatic tubing, and it works very similar to piping. I'm just going to go ahead and make it kind of like this, something a little larger than I need it to be. We'll place down one condenser like so. I think we need to place our filter here somewhere. Let's dig a little hole down here like so. And then place you up. There we go. Okay, so we want this little doohickey, this cross pattern, facing the item that it's pulling from. And once we apply a redstone signal, what it's going to do is pull an item out of here. We can choose what we want it to pull out. For example, only blaze rods, no blaze powder. And it'll send it up this little chute and into wherever it's supposed to go. In this case, into the macerator. We also want to place something here. Place a filter like this so we can pull out of the macerator back into the condenser. So now we've got this little loop system. All we have to do is apply a redstone signal. But on top of that, I want the excess to flow into a condenser, let's say this right here. Now, because this condenser is located further away than this one, it's going to prioritize this one. Whatever is closest, whatever opening is closest that is willing to receive the item coming out of the filter is where it's going to go primarily. Once this fills up and there's no more space, though, this will prioritize the second condenser and start loading this thing up. So let's see. For this, I actually wanted to have blaze powder, but I guess we'll live without it. Okay, so I want to do... Let's see. We're going to place ourselves a timer. This isn't the most effective way to do things, but it will work for the time being. If I take this redstone and apply it like so, there we go. It very temporarily created the signal that we needed. I'm also going to go ahead and send this thing around like this. We'll place some cobble so I'm able to get up it, like so. And there we go. Now we're applying a redstone signal here as well. I can control this thing if I click on it and say that I want the interval to be, let's say, every second. It probably is fine to be less, like 0.4, but for now, this will have to do. So let's go ahead and start macerating up some of the blaze rods just to start getting some blaze powder. Oh, wait, we don't have any power. Right, that is a necessary component of this. Ah, right, okay. Let me get some copper cabling, and I can just use the system we've already got. Kind of a silly oversight on my end, when you think about it. Of course, the macerator was going to need power. Fortunately, the filters do not, so that does make things a teensy-weensy bit easier. All right, so my basement's now going to look kind of ugly like all basements do, but that's fine. All right, now we're macerating. Wonderful. So I want to grab some of the blaze powder when this stuff comes out so I can control the filter, and let's go to this condenser real quick. We're going to say that we want you to make blaze rods when the stuff comes out. Come on, give me some of that precious, precious blaze powder. 3, 2, 1, and... Ah! It's already gone. Crap! Well, but you can see that it already created some blaze rods, and it's now sending it through the system. And now we have a couple more macerating. So yeah, this can go on literally forever as long as you have any source of power. Solar panel works just fine. We'll also use geothermal later. But now, blaze powder gets cooked into the system, like so. New blaze rods are created, automatically sent up. Now here's one of the cool things about pneumatic tubing. Let's suppose that the macerator was full. It doesn't just keep indefinitely sending blaze rods to get knocked out of the system and then despawn. If it's full, they go back where they came from. That makes this stuff so much better than anything Industrial Craft was able to come up with. One more trick I'll show you guys before we move on to something more important. So let's suppose that you're too impatient. You don't want this thing filling up with literally several hundred blaze powder. You just want a couple stacks of blaze powder, leave a little room for the blaze rod, and then the rest of this is just empty space. One thing you could do is place an item that cannot be condensed. So for example, use some of your extra pneumatic tubes, block off these slots, and they'll never get condensed, which means you don't have to wait until this entire condenser is full of blaze powder before you'll start getting dividends in your second condenser. There we go. Okay, now this is just one example of how you can use pneumatic tubing as a system. Ultimately, you can do this with Industrial Craft just fine. I just wanted to show you guys how the pneumatic tubes work because this is something we are going to use when I create my geothermal facility, which I guess we might as well go ahead and start now because this is going to take a long time. So we said that we wanted to build things over here, right? Okay, this kind of works for me. We'll say that this is the naturally occurring lava, but I'm going to go ahead and spread this thing out a little bit to look more like a proper lava well. As I'm prepping this, I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, I am not creating the most efficient possible geothermal facility, okay? What I'm going to use is a perfectly viable method to create a geothermal facility, but you don't need to create a giant trench of lava. This is exclusively for aesthetic purposes, okay? So once you guys see how this is going to work, I'm sure you can figure out I could have just done this in a big 12 by 12 square, and that would have been fine. But I want to make things look cool, gosh dang it. There we go, we have exposed... Oh, I am just now realizing I'm surrounded by death. We've exposed a hole in the Earth's surface, and the lava has flowed out, or so we'll say for roleplay purposes. I need to go take a nap. Can't work under these conditions. Nope, the Union would not accept it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to encircle this thing. Oh, I missed a spot. We'll fix that in a minute. I'm going to encircle this thing in Geothermal Generators. Again, I will reiterate, this is not the most efficient method of doing things. You could just place all your Geothermal Generators in one giant square, and it would be better. This is for aesthetic purposes. Because I think it looks cool, and it's my show, by God. Whatever, I don't need to explain myself to you. Okay, now that we have that done, here's the general theory of what we're going to do. We're going to create something kind of like that EMC generator, or we'll use a power flower, to use a condenser to create something called lava cells. If you look at these real quick, these lava cells are made by putting a bucket of lava into an empty cell, or we could just condense them for an EMC value of 128, which isn't half bad. those can be fed directly into a geothermal generator. So can buckets of lava, for that matter. If we just do this, hey look, it technically could be creating power if we hooked it up to a bat box right now. That's all that it takes. But instead, we're going to use those pneumatic tubing hooked up to a condenser that creates unlimited lava cells to the bottoms of these things. And we are going to just start feeding, forever, a whole mess of lava cells into each and every one of these. Then I'll attach some cables to all of them, send them to a giant bat box, and then boom! Now that said, if I'm going to make this work, I want it to look cool, so we're going to create a giant structure around it that serves no purpose other than looking cool. But that's the general premise of how this thing's going to work. Okay, so now we've got basically a lava lake that looks like it's flowing out of this sort of obsidian chimney. We're going to go ahead and set up a load of pneumatic tubes all around the underside of the geothermal generator. So this part of things is going to take a very, 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 very long time to do, I suspect. So now that I've dug out a trench, I'm just going to fill out some walls around it. And then we need to build ourselves a large building to encompass it all. One with enough space to look cool, and then just enough to create a power flower in a basement somewhere. I mean, really, I'm just wasting a load of time, but it's going to look awesome. Out of curiosity, audience, what are some of the biggest projects you've ever worked on in Minecraft? I'm curious. I mean, this is reasonably big, but it's not the biggest thing I've ever done, not by a long shot. And actually, out of curiosity, did you guys gravitate more toward the kind of artsy-fartsy building construction side of things, or the redstone side of things? Because I know it kind of divides the audience in those two groups. I personally was more of the artsy kind of guy. I had a roommate who was big in creating, like, redstone calculators and stuff, and that wasn't for me, but I liked this stuff. I don't know, I'm just kind of curious what you guys think. What have you done? And voila! We have finished building the geothermal power plant. It's not all hooked up yet, but it looks cool. I'll show you guys around in just a minute, but that took a few hours to make. In fact, it took so darn long that we actually had time to fill out several stacks of diamonds in our power flower, and I'm pretty sure, actually, that our EMC generator down in the basement using the blaze rods has also had time to make a lot, too. Actually, look at that, by the way. You can see the blaze rods, once this thing is full, head right back to where they came from. That's so darn useful. Yeah, we've made almost a full stack of diamonds. That's not too bad. So, yeah. Lots of wealth in the meantime. That's pretty cool. But before we show you around, there's a couple more things that I want to build. First off, we're going to need to have a load of cabling in order to hook up to our ore processing facility. Now, I don't want to use copper cables. They handle only a very low voltage, which I would say is unreliable, and there is a little-known mechanic in Tekkit where certain types of cables can lose some of the electrical charge over long distances. So I think like every, I don't know, like 7 or 8 blocks or something like that, copper cables will lose like a couple ticks of electrical units, whereas some of the more effective and better insulated ones will keep them. What we want to use are glass fiber cables. Now, I showed this stuff off a while ago, and it's really freaking expensive. It takes a load of diamonds, some redstone, a load of glass, and you only get 4 each diamond you use, which is not really a lot, and we're going to go through a ton of this stuff. But it is pretty darn effective. It can handle a very high voltage, I think like 512 electrical units per tick, whereas copper can only handle like either 32 or 64. So it's not a lot. This stuff's great though, and it doesn't lose its electrical charge over very, very long distances, like 128 blocks or something like that. So let's go show you around real quick. This thing took me, I think, 5 hours to build, something like that. This is all glass in the roof, so you can't really fall through it. I don't actually like the connected textures for glass that much. I may want to replace this later with something else, but either way, let's show you around. So 90% of this factory is purely decorative. Everything you see in this room, completely unnecessary, but by God, does it look cool. Which is the whole reason for doing half the stuff I do in Minecraft. But there's all of our geothermal generators, and you can't see it right now, but underneath all of these little panels right here, I have already placed some glass fiber cables. So I've hidden all of my cables like so, and I can just cover them up. Doink, 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 and doink. There we go. And now it's nice and neat and clean. There's a load of electrical wiring in the floor here, but you wouldn't know it just by looking at it. I mean, you might notice a little bit, like, for example, here they go. It's like a little crease in the rug kind of a thing, up the wall. We'll deal with all that later, though. So, that's the main room. Doesn't serve any purpose at all. Very inefficient. Very cool, though. This is where the magic is going to happen. So in here's the lava, but then we're again surrounded by all of our geothermal generators. I'll leave this here just so I know where the cables are. But you can cover up this side as well. So once again, I really wouldn't know where the cables are if you had never seen this thing before. And down over here, I've created myself a little power flower. Now, we could have done the blaze rod thing again, but I decided, you know what? I think that's going to be a little bit too powerful. It'll generate way more EMC than I actually need for this thing. And then I'll have to come down here and manually collect diamonds all the time, which isn't quite as fun. So a power flower will be fine. Right now, I don't have anything to hook it up to. But we'll fix that eventually. Let's get ourselves some timers, some pneumatic tubing, because we know we're going to want that, and a bit of redstone. Already placed a filter right here, so we should be able to place some pneumatic tubing, I think up and around over here. Doop-a-doop-doo. We want to hook this thing up to our geothermal facility, and we'll place you like this. No, I don't want it going into the collector. So let's move this around real quick. It's fine if it's a little bit long. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, something like that. Now, how do I get a redstone signal to the filter? Good question. One thing we should be able to do, actually, is change up our piping a little. I think we can just add a couple here and then throw on some redstone. There we go. Now we have redstone tubes. This stuff will actually carry the electrical charge for me, which is pretty nice. So we'll place one here. I thought I built another one, but I guess I didn't. Let's place you here. There we go. And if we place a bit of redstone along the side, you can see it has a little hookup area here. It will actually transfer the redstone signal through the tubing. That's actually pretty useful for a lot of other building facts. Right now, it's not that important, but it will be enough to get a signal to the filter to start pulling things. So we're going to place you here, and you can see it slightly light up there. Doink. So yeah, that'll work. Okay, so now we just need to actually fill up this condenser with something useful. And for that, we're going to need lava cells. Now, I think I showed you guys this stuff before. In order to make a lava cell, you need some empty cells, which is made just by making some tin into this diamond pattern. There we go, empty cells. And we can place one here with a bucket of lava, and then boom. Now we have a lava cell with an EMC value of 128. I'm going to grab just a bit of spare nickelite real quick, and we're going to send this thing over to our condenser. Place you in here, dump in some nickelite. By the way, you can see it generates pretty quick. And there we go. Now we have a whole load of lava cells. I'm just going to keep one to put it in the filter to make sure nothing ever gets put in the wrong place. Doink. Okay, there we go. Now you may be wondering, by the way, how do these collectors work? I thought they take solar energy. It doesn't have to be solar energy from the sun. It could be any light source. So the glowstone in the ceiling will do the job. The torches will do the job. As long as this stuff has a little lit up indicator, you can see that it is, in fact, generating plenty of EMC. All right, so now what we need to do is hook up this pneumatic tubing, and what we're going to find happens is the lava cells automatically get pulled out. Oops, I seem to have misplaced that. Oh, you can't do it here. Oh, that's interesting. All right, sorry, didn't realize you couldn't do it around a cover, but I guess that makes sense. We'll place you here. And now we should see, yes, indeed, it is pulling out some of the lava cells. I'm going to speed up this timer down to... kind of mess this up. There we go. Half a second. That's pulling out a heck of a lot faster. Perfect. Okay, now let's take a quick look-see. So right now it's being delivered to the nearest geothermal generators, which is this one. And it is going to get dumped in here. And you can see right now it is, in fact, generating some power. So there we go. It's just going to keep doing this forever. And it will deliver to every single one of these geothermal generators, and they should be generating power. Now, the problem is, I don't have anywhere to store my power. I could set up some bat boxes, but I would need a ton of them. They're not going to be very effective. What we probably want to do are set up some MFEs. I don't remember what that stands for exactly, but they're basically even bigger bat boxes. But they operate at a higher voltage, which means we are going to need transformers later. So let's take a quick look-see. What is involved in making an MFE? Here it is. This thing requires some insulated gold cable, which means we have to take some gold cables like so, and then place a couple of rubber around it, and then bam, no problem. Gold cable just used by making some gold ingots, and there you go, you're fine there. Then we're going to need some energy crystals. What are those? Just redstone around a diamond. That's it. Pretty easy to make. And we're going to need a couple of machine blocks, which is still made by the refined iron. But I don't even know if just a regular MFE is going to be enough. It holds like a couple 100,000, I think, electrical units. I'd rather hold a few million if I can. There we go. Ah, MFSU. I am so sorry. What is involved in making an MFSU? Lapotron crystals with advanced machine blocks, for which we're going to need advanced alloy and carbon plating. And then, crap, what was else? What makes the Lapotron crystals? That involves, lapis, some electrical circuits, and an energy crystal. Okay, that's not as bad as it sounds. And then lastly, advanced circuits, which is a regular circuit with some lapis, redstone, and glowstone. Not too hard to make, just a bit time-consuming. I think the hardest part for us is actually going to be getting some advanced machine blocks using carbon plating and advanced alloy. Now, how does this stuff work? Well, carbon plating is basically carbon fibers that have been compressed into a plate. For that, we need to get some raw carbon mesh and then use it in a compressor, which we haven't built yet, in order to get our carbon plating. Carbon mesh is used making carbon fibers, which is just a bunch of coal dust. So if we macerate this stuff down, we should be able to do that. That's not too bad. What is involved in making a compressor? That is a machine block, an electric circuit, and a bunch of regular stone. Not a very complicated machine. Pretty easy stuff. So we'll worry about that in a second. And then for, let's see, the advanced alloys, you just compress a mixed metal ingot, which is used by making a bunch of bronze, tin, and refined iron. So yeah, bit of a pain, but we totally can do it. Is that an eclipse, by the way? No, it's just an empty moon. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Anyway, cool. I'm going to take a quick nap, and then we'll get started working on all of that. Okay, so I've condensed down what I think are going to be enough resources for us. So let's start with something simple, the compressor, which is going to be the electrical circuit, machine block, and a bit of stone. That's no problem. Place a machine block, some electronic circuits, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Compressors then. Oh, and while we're at it, let's go ahead and get started macerating up a fair bit of coal. Move you over here, start working on that. Okay, and then hooked up somewhere to my electrical grid, which probably will be fine right here. Wish I kept my axe, but oh well. Place you like so. Whoop. Oh, there you are. Okay, was worried that it wasn't going to show up for a second there, and we'll grab some more copper cabling, hook that thing up. There we go. Okay, now that thing should be functioning. So, let's go ahead and, while we're waiting for the coal to macerate, we'll create some of these special ingots. We're going to need some bronze. I guess I can start with making like 16 for now. I can't really remember how many we're going to need. That's 32. It's probably good enough for the time being. Let's go ahead and get started compressing that. And that's going to create some of our advanced alloys. Some nice good plates. Takes a while to compress, but we can do that. And then, we'll be able to get some copper, some mesh. Let's see, we'll need coal dust. I think I need a lot more of this, so we'll wait. And how are we doing with our compression? That's a fair number of advanced alloys. We might be able to finish with this, actually. I'll let it keep doing its thing, but there we go. All right, let's grab some of this coal dust. We're going to create ourselves some meshes, if I believe. Let's see, one like this. Okay, that's some raw carbon fibers. That's 2 of them. Gosh, we're going to have to macerate so much coal down. But okay, with a couple of coal fibers, we can place them like so. That means we now have a raw carbon mesh, probably at a 0 and 90 degree orientation, because that stuff matters. And if we compress that down, we get a single carbon plate, which we'll be able to use to make our advanced machine blocks. I will admit that ticking sound beneath my feet is very annoying, but okay, at least we now have some carbon plates. So let's go build myself some advanced machine blocks. Man, this stuff gets complicated as time goes on. All right, place a couple here. Place a couple here. Couple here. And there we go, advanced machine blocks. Now, for the MFSUs, I needed MFEs, which are energy crystals, which I already have, machine blocks, and more of the 2 times insulated gold cables. I may not actually have enough energy crystals, which I just realized, but oh well. Okay, so a couple machine blocks. Place one here, 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 and then cable, 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 cable? Yes, okay. So that's how this works. 1 MFE is done. And that makes 2. Okay, so if that's done, MFSU required now these Lapatrons, some of the advanced circuits, MFEs, and advanced machine blocks. I think we're actually ready to make these, so let's do that now. A couple of advanced circuits, machine blocks. Oh, I need the rest of my Lapatron crystals. Hang on. Grab a bunch of these. Okay, try that again. Doop, doop, doop. The one problem with the Lapatron crystals is that you can't stack them. I find that rather irritating, but oh well, what can you do? That's an MFSU. Perfect. I don't have enough Lapatron crystals to make more. Okay, well, we'll hold off on that for now. So the MFSU holds a freaking ton of electricity, but it only outputs it at a high voltage. So let's go ahead and place one up here just so we can start storing all the power that we're surely making with our geothermal generators right now. and sort of see how that looks. The glass fiber cables should be able to handle whatever we're outputting. So MFSU, place one, let's say here, hook up the cables, boom. Okay, should be working. Look how much power we're generating. Look how many thousands of electrical units we're making per second. And I don't even think all of our geothermal generators are operating right now. That's just how freaking strong this is. If anything, we're actually limited by our our glass fiber cables not being able to handle that much current draw. That's probably it. But that is plenty of power to keep my ore processing facility running. So let's build another one of those. We'll store a few million units of electrical units. And then we have to find a way to transfer it all the way over to my ore processing facility and then using transformers to bring it down to a voltage that we can actually use. Okay, so if we're going to make this work, then we need to get some transformers, as I said. So we don't want to have the high voltage. That just turns things into a high voltage transformer. We want to have a couple of medium and low voltage transformers. The medium ones aren't that hard to make, just some more of this insulated gold cable around a machine block. The low voltage requires just a bit of copper, some copper cables, and some wood. That's pretty easy for us to do. We can probably even make the medium one right now. Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And the way this is going to work, it takes the input of high voltage through this little red dot, and then everything else will output a medium voltage, which is less than 128 electrical units per tick. I can't remember for sure. Not enough to power our machines. The machines will explode with medium voltage. So that's why we need to have the low voltage one. And there we go. Okay, now we have the low voltage transformers. Now, we need to transfer our power, get some cables running all the way from there to over there. And for that, I don't really have any good advice as far as what's going to look good. I sometimes like to take the wooden fences and kind of make it look like electrical poles, and then just run some cabling around. Actually, before we continue, one thing we could do that looks kind of good, it's just for, aesthetic appeal, is something called scaffolding. Scaffolding's pretty cool stuff. It's actually very useful for construction projects if you don't have the ability to fly. Basically, they are blocks you can place that function kind of like a ladder on all sides. You can climb up them and stack them up to like, 5 or 6 high. And if you break the bottom one, then all the ones up top fall down. So it's a pretty cheap way to make construction projects a little bit faster. Yeah, there's a long way to go for this poor power, but whatever. It's going to work. Okay. So now that we're getting kind of close, we know that this corner over here is where I want to go. So what I'll probably do is put a quick hole in here. Oh, nope, never mind. That is, well, I guess we can break the chandelier. That's probably fine. Don't need this here after all, right? Hang on. Get this out of the way. Get it out of the way. Come on. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is place some scaffolding around here, which is going to look kind of cool. Maybe not on the steps like this. Hang on. Get rid of some of that. Move you. I don't have enough bricks. That's fine. We'll just use cobblestone for this part, I guess. It'll look fine. Who's worried? Dun, dun. And this will be my transformer tower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place both of my transformers in here so it, as it travels through this tower, transfers down to a voltage that I can actually use. Facing up. We'll place a cable between them. Okay. So now, when this wire hooks up here, it should go from high to medium, and then medium to low, which I can then use for all of my machines. Okay, moment of truth. Well, it didn't blow up. That's a good sign. Okay, so now let's run it down to the bat boxes and see if it starts filling them up. Actually, those bat boxes are probably not going to cut it at this point. They're pretty weak in comparison to how much power I'm going to be feeding them, but oh well. Okay, place. Come here. Place, place, place. I hate working with glass fiber sometimes. It's so freaking finicky. Little nervous, because this is where things can go wrong. Ah! Hey! Where the heck do you come from? I've lit this place up nicely. Ow! Get the heck out of my... This place is apparently not as secure as I thought it was. Well, that's rude. All right. Had a little heart attack moment there. Thought something maybe had blown up. Okay, place here. Is it gonna blow up? Please do not blow up. And please actually transfer the energy. Well, yeah, it's definitely filling up pretty quick. So I think we can say conclusively that yes, indeed, it is filling up the bat boxes. The Geothermal Generator is now hooked up, which means I have enough power to keep this thing running forever. So right now, I'm only at about half capacity, believe it or not. That's interesting. Not all of these things are actually making anything. I haven't finished filling them with lava cells. So in theory, I'm not even done generating electrical power. I could generate more. Yeah, about 4.1 million units of electricity and still going up. So this geothermal power plant really should be able to fulfill all of my electrical needs for the rest of the game, and I should never have to touch it again. Never have to go in here. I will, because it looks awesome. But that's it. See what I mean about power poles, by the way? You can do something kind of like this. It's not the best looking thing I've ever worked on. If you have any ideas on what would be better, I am all ears. But I'll just place a bunch of these so it looks like I'm having some way of directing the cable instead of them just sort of hovering in the air like this. Wait, who's breaking down my walls? What's going on over here? I heard a door. Oh, hey! What the crud? This whole area is compromised. I'll just place the finishing touches on here. It's just not great, but if it works, it freaking works. Okay, so now we have power poles running this whole thing over. There's our transformer tower, which doesn't look half bad in my opinion. And we are good to go. Well, that was an exhausting exercise. But if it works, it freaking works. I'll fill that in later. So yeah, guys, I know I threw a lot at you in this, but you hopefully see the appeal as to how something like this will work. And again, everything above ground level here is pretty much unnecessary. You really could have just gotten by with a 12 by 12 square with just these geothermal generators, some pneumatic tubes running underneath, and then using the same concept to generate lava cells, or buckets of lava if you prefer, but I think lava cells are better. And making unlimited power with tens of millions of units stored and ready to go at a moment's notice. Pretty darn useful. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope that you enjoyed this episode and found it entertaining. If so, then I would certainly ask that you hit that like button, leave a comment with your ideas, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit notify, the little bell down there, if you have already. My name is Pravus. Thank you all very much for watching Tekkit, and I will see you guys next time.